Good evening. This meeting is now reconvened in open session. The time is 5 p.m. Board members present via Zoom are Trustee Sung, Trustee Hernandez, Trustee Cruz, Trustee Allen, Trustee Santos, Trustee Adams. Board members present in our auditorium are myself. Trustees, please put your microphone on mute and turn on your video so our colleagues and the public can see you. We're going to start this evening with speakers to specific agenda items. In addition to monthly regular board meetings like the one tonight, the board holds a monthly public agenda review meeting a week prior to our regular board meetings for the purpose of discussing those items and asking questions of the administration before we vote on those items. In addition, we use what we refer to as a Q&A document where board members can submit questions about agenda items to the administration. This document is not only provided to the board, but it is also posted on our website to keep our work transparent to the public. We welcome all of you who are joining us online this evening. In response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, the Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is operating at a reduced capacity, and the board auditorium is closed. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from members of the community. Only those who have registered with the Board Services Office online form or by email by 9:30 a.m. today will be allowed to speak or have their comments read aloud. District staff will call registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual waiting room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of the district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to Board Services via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 15 speakers registered this evening. Speakers shall be limited to 2 minutes each. A member of the Board Services staff will track your time. A clock will signal when your time is up and the call will end. I ask that you please respect our procedures and the other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Additionally, while you are speaking on the call, please mute your computer or other device on which you are watching the board meeting to avoid interference. I'm going to turn it over to the administration to call our speakers.
Our first speaker tonight is Allison Newport.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Focusing community engagement efforts on 5-year goal setting is a mistake. The community is struggling to survive virtual learning, and in just over a week, teachers will transition to an impossible juggling act between simultaneously teaching virtually and in person. Your engagement efforts are desperately needed to gauge student experience, family support, technology ease of use, and workload appropriateness. In-person and virtual decision-making is not a reasonable barometer of the virtual experience. Required schoolwork should be limited to an amount that can be reasonably completed in a normal school day. Families, particularly at the elementary level, are struggling to assist their students for long hours. In this year, flexibility, delay, or make PSAT and SAT tests optional. Colleges aren't requiring them anyway. Push TEA harder to suspend the STAR test. Rushing to complete unnecessary tests in a stressful, distracting test environment is not in the student's best interest. Please do the right thing and table community engagement on long-term issues. Refocus that effort around school opening and virtual learning experience and board performance around the emergency constraints. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rob Block. Mr. Block, you may begin.
Hi, my name is Rob Block. I'm a Houston firefighter. I live around the corner from Luskin Elementary School, and I was calling with concerns about how HSD is reopening and the plans around COVID. As you all probably know, there's 3 Houston firefighters that have passed away from coronavirus. Firefighters signed up to do a dangerous job, and we have a lot of PPE, and we still have more than 250 members that have become infected. And for the most part, I don't think that teachers signed up to do a dangerous job, and I think that y'all's responsibility is to do as much as you can to keep teachers safe. I think y'all should definitely consider the parents that didn't say if they wanted to opt in or opt out. You should consider letting them calling that an opt out. Don't force anybody to go to school where the parents haven't said that's what they want. And please do everything you can to implement this as slowly as possible. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for people's symptoms to show up, and as someone that drives people to hospitals, it can take up to months before you actually get to see that that there's an outbreak of coronavirus. So I'm very concerned about reopening and the risk that poses to teachers, students, and the community, and would encourage you to do everything you can to make sure that you're following all the CDC protocols, keeping people at least 6 feet apart, and not exposing people that don't need to be exposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tracy Riley. Ms. Riley, you may begin.
Thank you. Soliciting community engagement on 5-year goal setting feels very out of touch when the district hasn't developed basic testing protocols to ensure a safe reopening for our children and teachers. The district and school board should direct 100% of its vast resources into a safe reopening for in-person students and improving the remote learning experience. Schools, teachers, and families need your leadership and decision-making now. Delay high school reopening until October 30th. Rushing to open all grades at once is a mistake. Reopen the lower grades first and make necessary improvements to the plan as necessary before reopening high schools. Outline specific testing protocol to occur following an exposure. This plan must include free testing locations open to both teachers and students, as it is really tough to find testing for elementary age children. Please try it for your own and see. It's nearly impossible. Require testing and other quarantine before returning to school for students and teachers. Parents made their decisions about virtual or face-to-face based on many unknown and vague assumptions. Families must be informed that they are allowed to change from in-person to virtual at any time. In less than 2 weeks, Houston ISD schools will receive 100,000 students in person. The time for leaders to act is now. Community engagement and 5-year goal setting can wait. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Scott Parker. Mr. Parker, you may begin. Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
What was you saying? Yes, ma'am. Hello?
Yes, sir, you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Scott Parker. I'm a 7th grade science teacher in Houston Independent School District. And this thing with community engagement, first of all, I want to mention that community engagement involves building a relationship with all of your constituents. That includes the community leaders, all stakeholders, the community leaders, the parents, the students, and all of the staff. And so with building relationships, it is very important to keep the best interests of all of those concerned at heart. And with all of the, the racial injustice that's been going on with the pandemic going on, I'm sure that many people have lost family members. They've been displaced, in different homes because they may have lost jobs and everything. We all must take those kind of things into consideration when building relationships with people. We need to care about them as people and not so much as just trying to get dollars in our pockets. And so with these, with the government, what they're doing right now is they want to institute the TEA. They want to make sure that, we still got exams and going on. And I understand it is very important for students, to make sure that they're progressing and that they're growing. But at the same time, we need to care about them as people first, and their Maslow needs need to be met first, which are physiological safety needs, and most importantly, their social emotional needs. And if all of those needs are not being met first, then we're definitely not going to be able to push them and motivate them to achieve in school when they don't even know where their next meal is coming, or when they may have lost a family member.
Our next speaker is Kendra Yarborough. Ms. Yarborough, you may begin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Hello, my name is Kendra Yarborough, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. As many of you know right now, this is a time of very high stress and anxiety for many teachers and staff as we are about to approach the 12th and the 19th, whether we return to campus or our students. Many of us are struggling currently, trying to make decisions, figuring out how do we keep ourselves safe, as well as ensure that we're providing for the families, our own families who are at high risk, and there is just tons of anxiety. I'm asking you today to please ensure that we impose the 6 feet social distancing and class sizes limits from 10 to 15. This will greatly help reduce teachers' stress. Also, please publicize to parents that they can change to virtual at any time. We need this communicated so parents know that any time they can change to virtual. In addition, I'm asking that we ensure that we provide free COVID testing for employees and students. As someone whose family member was exposed and therefore I tried to get a test, I was only allowed to test my child who was exposed versus myself, and that is concerning to me. I feel that if we're going to support the families in HISD, if one person is exposed, we should all be able to get tested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dr. Pamela Boveland. Dr. Boveland, you may begin.
Yes. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This is Pamela Boveland, and I am speaking tonight because I think that community engagement is a great idea, but we must have community engagement that pushes for, even if half of the students do return on October 19th, rapid testing protocols must be in place. We must test everybody weekly. Surrounding school districts that opened in person are having to roll back because of kids now testing positive. The city and the county are providing the most robust monitoring system in the country. But that threat level remains too high to open without rapid testing and upgraded ventilation. The budget must include rapid testing. They use rapid testing in the White House, and look where we are. Excuse me. Remember, without opening HISD and active cases in their facilities before we even began last month, these cases are identified by the health department, not by HISD. Even HISD's own protocol doesn't require a negative test result. Do you think that it's a good protocol in a pandemic? Does that sound like we're following the science? Does cutting social distancing in half and increasing pod sizes sound like we're following the science? If you're going to follow the science and open safely, then rapid testing at least weekly for every single person in every campus needs to be in place. Rapid testing, not star testing. Continue efforts to get every child the device. Phase in the opening with rapid testing in place. Stop putting lives at risk. Follow the test, follow the science, not the governor.
Thank you.
Demand.
Our next speaker is Daniel Santos. Mr. Santos, you may begin.
Follow the science and open.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. I'm speaking on item B3. I would like to call into question the value of this ad hoc committee. In March, the public was informed that the committee's mission was to increase and improve stakeholder engagement. However, since March, every committee meeting, except for one, was held at noon. On May 14th, the chair reassured the public that members of SDMCs and feeder patterns would be invited. As a member of my campus, SDMC, and the Navarro East End Community Council, I can attest that these invitations never arrived. Moreover, community engagement implies listening to the community. 5 months ago, the community sent over 1,000 emails to trustees asking them to vote down the District of Innovation resolution, and the community was ignored. 4 months, the community has called for the extension of virtual school due to the current COVID threat level in our city, and the community was ignored. So again, I would like to call into question the value of this ad hoc committee. If the voice of over 1,000 stakeholders are brushed aside, then this committee needs to be brushed aside also. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Josephine Lee. Ms. Lee, you may begin.
Hi, I am a teacher and a mother of 2 children in HISD schools. By mandating that virtual teachers must return to campuses, the district is putting our need to protect our health and that of our families against our commitment to our students. My choice to keep my children at home has been stripped from me because I'm required to go into the classroom whether I am virtual or not. Teachers I have talked to are now considering resigning from the district because they have elevated risks of infection as identified by CDC, but have been denied ADA accommodation because they are taking care of elderly family members with high-risk health conditions because they don't want their children to go back to schools where social distancing measures of 6 inches have now become 3 inches with no method of enforcement identified. And because there are still no clear protocols for when there are positive cases among students and staff. By mandating that virtual teachers must return to campuses, HIC is sending a message to teachers that the district does not trust our commitment to teach students virtually outside of the surveillance of administrators. And since in-service started, many of us have been working 12 to 15 hours a day, teaching, planning, grading, making the virtual platform work for students, and reaching out to students and parents well beyond our work hours. So I ask the district honor the commitment teachers have to their students by protecting our health and allowing teachers with elevated health conditions or those caring for family members with elevated health conditions to remain at home to teach virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen Schmidt. Ms. Schmidt, you may begin.
Hi, I'm Colleen Schmidt. I teach at the high school level, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences being a teacher and on the front lines. Today, just a few hours ago, we asked questions as teachers about what we do if we get sick, or what our sub-protocol is, or even understanding the fact that we have to quarantine if we take a COVID test and it comes back negative. Our administrators didn't have answers to this. Our administrators, through no fault of their own, didn't know the answers because these were elements that weren't discussed. Last night, dozens of teachers had to go to a town hall meeting after hours virtually to get answers from the interim superintendent about some of their concerns regarding policies and procedures. I know that TEA has restrictions about us being in person or being virtual, but I have some strong concerns about the communication and the process that's been going on, and I don't think that we're ready to go back in person and be safe. And this is especially true with communication towards parents. I don't think a lot of parents understand that in-person education is actually going to be very similar to virtual, except with the possibility of their student getting sick and the teacher getting sick. Overall, I just want the board to think about supporting continuing virtual because of the lack of communication and difficulties understanding, even as a frontline employee, about what's going on and having all of the information that can make us better educators and support our students. That's all.
Thank you. Karina Quesada Leon. Ms. Leon, you may begin.
Yes. Yes. Hi. There has not been sufficient community engagement about this reopening plan. When the community has been engaged, it is to check off some box and actual listening does not take place. Teachers, parents, community members, and students have told you the plan is incredibly vague. Then at the last hour, the distance between students was changed from 3 feet to 6 feet when many families had already made their decision. Parents have been told, quote, reduced space would only be implemented as needed, end quote. But we know that 3 feet between desks will be the standard and not the exception. I'm very concerned for your teachers, staff, and their families who do not have a choice in any of this. My brother is a bus driver for Pasadena ISD. 2 weeks after Pasadena went back to face-to-face instruction, he contracted COVID-19. He lives 2 blocks away from my parents, and after a brief interaction with my mother before he knew he was sick, she became infected. A few days later, she had to be taken to the ER. At the time of writing this comment, we thought my mom was recovering, but she is currently back in the hospital. She is receiving good care and hopefully will soon be better, but others won't be so lucky. Your plan as it stands will permanently damage some and kill others. There will be blood on HIC's hands in its rush to reopen. Not everyone takes this virus seriously, and some will even send kids to school when they shouldn't, just like they do with the flu. Please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda McDonald. Ms. McDonald, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm speaking to the board today as a parent and a teacher with almost 20 years of experience in HISD. I would like to say that I do love my job and I do adore my students, which is what prompted my participation today. I teach at Chavez High School. where it's no secret that 90% of the students are Latino. The school does predominantly come from 2 of the top 10 zip codes of confirmed COVID cases in Harris County. And given the loosely written reopening plan, not necessary for Chavez, but for the entire district, I am extremely concerned for my students' safety and then the safety of the homes that they return to, which are multi-generational homes. I feel that the district was a little misleading with parents and students because the changing of the initial plan from 6 to 3 feet apart, and that happened, I believe, 72 hours before HISD closed the parent selection for virtual or in-person instructions. I also feel that the district wasn't clear about what in-person instruction would look like, and I don't think they were properly updated of the changes to the CDC guidelines in time to potentially change their selections. Because I am a parent, I can say that I myself never received any phone call, an email, or a letter alerting me to the fact that I could change my selection once I made it. And I think that adds yet another layer of fear that I have for my students and their families. Luckily, I teach in the district, so I had access to information that most parents don't. It's no secret we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I do wish that HISD could view teachers and parents as partners and not conceal information from any of those people.
So we'll read the comments from speakers who were not available on the phone. Jackie Anderson wrote, "I will speak." Claudia Rios, that HISD commit to a distance of 6 feet in smaller classes, invest in COVID tests to protect the people, especially in communities where COVID is worse, like in my community. Let the parents know with plenty of time that they can change from virtual at any moment. A smaller number of face-to-face will save lives. You can delay the reopening until November 3rd because you have a waiver. This COVID disease has killed many family members, and my husband is a COVID-19 survivor. This illness kills. Take all safety measures for our students. Thank you. Christina Quintero. There was no real community engagement around the reopening of schools. We received little information, and in fact, we were bamboozled. 3 days into the registration period, we found out that class sizes would be larger, and the 6 feet social distancing could be as little as 3 feet. No one told us that if we chose in-person instruction, our children will be sitting in classrooms in front of a computer just like at home, but now it's significantly greater risk of getting COVID or passing COVID onto family members. Now I found out that we can change to virtual, but I did not hear it from HISD, not a phone call. I heard it from a community group. HISD, you need to improve your community engagement. If you can spam my phone about a parent fair at Hattie Mae, you can certainly spam our phones letting us know that we can change to virtual at any time, different from face-to-face, which is once per 6 weeks. You also need to make it easy for us to make the change and tell us how. Just a phone call or email to the school principal or school secretary. On that note, HISD needs to share more information about active COVID cases when we return to school and provide a school-by-school active and cumulative total number of cases. Continuing with the plan to reintroduce students to in-person learning without providing detailed report of current cases and how it's being handled is reckless. As flu season approaches, there is no doubt we will see a surge in COVID cases. I'm concerned for the safety of students and teachers and school staff once we resume in-person instruction. We need transparency of what type of PPE will be provided and how much PPE is given to schools, especially those designated as Title I.
John Garcia. Good evening, board members. I'm especially pleased to hear the policing task force is beginning its functions. Community Voices for Public Education has delivered to each member of the task force a letter outlining the community asks developed by the group and our rationale for supporting these asks. I want to focus on our fifth ask, moving funding away from punitive discipline and policing toward constructive and necessary resources for HISD's kids. Yesterday, the Houston Chronicle reported that HISD would consider a $17 million increase in special education spending, a budget move that typically doesn't occur in the fall. There is likely no question that increased resources are needed for high need groups. However, this does bring up the question of budget priorities and funding mechanisms for the district. The same story notes that HISD will use its rainy day fund to cover the cost increase, and that while there are $400 million in this fund, officials warn that budget estimates are changing often with the pandemic. Additionally, special education funding should not be something that is left to one-time revenue infusions from a rainy day fund. It is simply so important of a topic to be without a consistent revenue stream. This is all to say that there are millions of dollars that can be moved from policing, security, and monitoring services to areas in dire need of resources like special education. We are not asking to put school resource officers out of work. Instead, HISD should consider ideas like retraining officers for work in areas of importance. As the task force convenes, they should see this push for more funding as an example of the ways reallocation of police funds can be used to enrich the lives of HISD children. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers to agenda items.
Thank you. Sorry, can't see. The board will now adjourn to closed session under Section D of Chapter 551 of Texas Government Code Open Meetings Act, subsections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.082, 551.0821, and 551.083. Should board final action vote or decision on any matter considered in the closed session be required, such final action vote or decision shall be taken at the open meeting covered by this notice upon the reconvening of this public meeting or at a subsequent meeting of the board upon notice thereof. The board is adjourned to closed session at 5:26 p.m. This meeting of the Board of Education of the Houston Independent School District is now reconvened in open session. The time is 7:36 p.m. We are now ready to hear from Dr. Lathan on instructional continuity. Trustees, please hold your questions until the end of her presentation.
November 8th, we've had, thank you, had 156,000 unique student logins, 184,320 team unique student logins. We've provided digital support to our elementary, as it relates to elementary and secondary curriculum. We've provided over 1,800 one-on-one bookings for families needing support on how to get online, how to access the hub. We've also processed 4,900 tickets, and those requests could be just my laptop is not working, how do you get into contact for this, how do I take the parent course. Digital Learning Centers, as you recall, opened on Tuesday, September 8th. We were required to provide learning centers or locations for students that did not have access to technology. As you can see, the first week, we had 538 students that took advantage of attending the learning centers. And over the course of the past several weeks, that number has decreased. All of the students who've requested technology as of Friday, October 2nd, have received it. Also, the week of September 29th, we actually started bringing back special education students to those digital learning centers. Special education students that were needing additional support with accessing the curriculum. Special education team members were assigned to those digital learning centers just to help special education students. So we not only had the students receiving support, gen ed students, but also special education students. If you recall, parents were asked to complete a survey selecting whether or not they wanted their students to return face-to-face on October 19th or to continue in a virtual format. We had 41% of respondents selecting in-person learning to start on Monday, October 19th. The heat map just shows you where those requests came in across the district. 59% of the respondents participating have selected to continue in a virtual format for the second 6 weeks of school. Once again, you see the heat map just showing you those requests. We've provided support to our principals over the past several weeks as we prepare not only in the virtual format, but for face-to-face. Facilities have been, we've completed our assessment of our facilities as it relates to PPEs, ensuring that every campus has a wellness team, an isolation area. Signage has been provided, plexiglass cleaning kits, space configurations. Worked with principals in designing their master schedules, not only for virtual instruction, but also face-to-face. Working now to finalize the arrival and dismissal procedures for when students return on Monday, October 19th. Technology deployment, as I stated, as of last Friday, every student that has requested technology has received it. And then we've worked on our transportation routes for October 19th. Additional support. Meetings have been held with principals, providing them a principal's toolkit, a communications toolkit also, sample staff agendas, sample parent meetings of information and topics that need to be covered. Every principal should have completed by tomorrow, held a meeting with any parent desiring information about face-to-face instruction. So those information, and those are virtual meetings. We've also conducted home visits for non-engaged students. We've conducted virtual walkthroughs by going in and observing in classroom and providing support to principals on how to support their teachers. Special education support, as I shared, our digital learning centers have been available. They were available starting September 29th. We also have provided additional support in the IEP or virtual environment, utilizing Amio Speech to provide speech services, monitoring of IEP goals to make sure students are on track and that we are supporting them and they're meeting their goals. And then providing software options as it relates to accommodation and accessibility. Literacy support, as you're aware, House Bill 3 requires us to provide Reading Academy training for our early literacy teachers. HISD is also approved provider for other school districts. And so we've been providing that training. It is a 60-hour required training for staff. And it's just a breakdown of the training that we've provided thus far for kindergarten teachers, special education teachers, and elementary principals. SEL support that's major and ongoing. It's not only a concern, it was a concern pre-COVID, but it remains a concern now that we're in the midst of a pandemic, making sure that we're providing support. We've conducted SEL series to encourage teachers to take care of themselves and central office staff members. One Friday I did a weekly wrap-up. It was live. We brought in a psychologist to help us with breathing techniques and relaxation techniques, and we've provided SEL Google training, also working and providing intervention or prevention support for our families. All of our police officers have been trained in nonviolent crisis intervention and de-escalation. That was provided by the SEL department. We've also established partnerships with UT Medical and Baylor College of Medicine for services through our mental health and wellness initiative. And we're continuing to provide Chapter 37 Code of Student Conduct for designated campus staff. Those designated campus staff members are identified by the principal, could be a counselor or a classroom teacher. As we think about, and we've all had, and we're going to see the numbers shortly, we're trying to, the students that were not engaged in the spring, we've worked to locate those students, and also students that have not shown up this school year, trying to locate them. A strong emphasis on 7th through 12th grade students that were enrolled last year. Also, we've conducted phone calls, personal outreach, home visits, and we will continue to try to locate those students that have not shown up. Our enrollment, on September 9th, our enrollment was 160,408 students. As of last Friday, October 2nd, it was 196,195 students. So as you can see, our numbers are increasing, but we set a target and a goal. Our budget was built on 207,000 students, and so we still have students that we need to locate. And this just shows you a week-by-week running total of our enrollment. Technology, we've shared with you our device standards previously, but just want to reiterate, pre-K2 students receive iPads, 3rd through 8th grade students receive Chromebooks, our high school students receive Windows laptops. Our existing programs, of course, is Power Up for our high schools, elementary and middle schools. We have our partnerships with Communities in Schools, CompuDot, and then other campus and district deployment. Our middle schools also are participating, 6 of them, in the Verizon Innovators Learning Zone. Technology devices and needs, and I want to talk about this because, as I said to you earlier, as of October 2nd, every person that has requested a device has received a device. Remember, I've also shared with you previously, this number will continue to change. As needs change for families, principals and staff members are going into the computers and updating those numbers. If you notice, we have deployed from the district level over 144,000 devices. Those devices include for high school students, elementary students, middle school students. That's what we've deployed as a district. Since March, we've purchased 105,000 devices. We've deployed 53,000 of those devices. We're still waiting on an additional shipment of 51,000 devices. Not only students having access to a laptop, Chromebook, or iPad, some of our students also need access to the internet, and we have provided hotspots for those students desiring those. We've deployed 36,298 hotspots. We have another shipment, or wait on another shipment of 10,000 to arrive, but based on requests as of October 2nd, we have deployed what has been requested. As I said, these numbers will change as circumstances change. As parents go back to work and they need to take their device back with them, and some of their students are staying home, students are asking or requesting devices. Teachers that have requested devices and hotspots, we've deployed those out to them. We continue to deploy out to our elementary and middle school campuses. So like I say, everything was completed on September 28th based on everything that was requested. We also continue with internet filtering to protect devices and hotspots. When we started school on Tuesday, September 8th, we have been providing for the past 4 weeks curbside pickup at 86 campuses from 10 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock daily. It includes a prepackaged breakfast and a lunch. Students and parents or parents are required to show proof that the student is enrolled in our district. Students that are attending our digital learning centers are receiving breakfast and lunch. When we move to a virtual and a face-to-face environment, there will be some slight changes. So in our virtual environment, starting on October 19th, students that select to continue virtual, you're going to see some similarities to what we did this summer. We will have curbside pickup at over 50 schools and apartments combined, but we will be providing students with several days worth of meals like we did this summer. And you'll see the dates listed that from 10 to 1 o'clock. And actually, we're starting the week of October 12th, and then 2 to 5 Mondays and Thursdays beginning October 19th. And then you also see some additional locations. The apartment complexes will be deploying food from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock daily at various locations. All of this information is available on our district website, or if there's a question or concern, parents can always call our hotline. Then also on beginning October 14th, from 2 to 6 on every Wednesday, we will be at 2 HISD stadiums, Coward and Barnett stadiums, once again deploying a week's worth of food for our families, continuing to try to meet the needs of all of our families. When we start back with face-to-face instruction on October 19th for students that will be attending school, they will continue to receive breakfast and lunch. And all meals will be prepackaged. Bus service will start October 19th for students that have selected face-to-face and unidentified students. Students are being provided transportation in this order: special education and homeless students, elementary students, and specialty school students, students who live along high-risk routes, and then additional routes will be given priority to middle school students. Of course, all of our buses students will be required to wear their masks. We'll be providing hand sanitizers, so making sure that there are no issues there and that we're following COVID guidelines. All of our buses will be cleaned after each route. Monday, September 28th, central office and non-school-based staff started reporting back to the district. Monday, October 12th, all central office staff will be back across the entire district. All school-based staff will return to their campuses. Teachers will teach virtually in their classrooms during the week of October 12th. Monday, October 19th is when in-person learning resumes. We 3 weeks ago released our COVID dashboard. It is available on our district website. It provides you information on positive cases across our district at campuses and also central office locations. I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. All right, opening it up to questions from my colleagues. I'm going to try and hold us to one round of 2 minutes per trustee, but our norm is usually 2 rounds. So I'm just going to ask you, trustees, let's try and do it in 1 round if possible for sake of time. But if we really, really have to do a second round, I'll honor that. Use the chat as the cue to speak. Going once. Going twice. I see no questions from my colleague. Oh, Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much, Dr. Lathan, for the presentation this evening. I just have a few questions. One of them is on page 23 for the food pickup sites. I was just curious as to what is considered proof of enrollment.
Report card, student ID. I think we've even used birth, something identifying the address, an ID, report card. What am I missing? A bus pass. So, I mean, it's very flexible. We just need something as it relates to identification.
Okay, thank you so much. Also, on I think it's page 28 or page 29. For the bus routes that are going to be opening back up again, I'm just curious if there's a protocol in place to have like windows down so that there's more ventilation going through the buses or something like that.
Yes, it is. Slide 27.
Thank you. Okay. And then on the reading academies, I know that we've been curious that we've been hearing a lot about the reading academies because it was something I think came out of HB3, out of TEA. They're rolling them out for the first time. And I can enter a referral, but it looks like they've kicked off. But I'm just sort of curious as to what approach they're taking and if there's anything that our board needs to understand a little bit better as we're working on our goals right now.
Not as it relates to the Reading Academy. We can provide you with an overview, but nothing as it relates to as you plan and prepare your goals. This is the training to ensure our teachers know how to support our students and teach them to read. Would you like us to overview of what's covered or based on?
Yeah, just an overview too, and also to help us understand sort of what resources the district might need as a result of the approach. Because there could be a change if it's balanced, it's whole, so just so we can have an understanding for future support.
Okay, Chief Rodriguez, you want to provide this overview?
Good afternoon, trustees, Dr. Lathan. So we did kick off our reading academies, and if you notice at the bullet where we have identified the cohort of teachers that are being trained, we began with kindergarten at the kindergarten level. So currently all kindergarten teachers, all special education elementary teachers, and principals are undergoing the 60-hour, 10-month training under the reading academies. And so part of that is we actually have central cohort, they're called cohort leaders. In HISD, we call them early literacy specialists that oversee the training. They make sure that the teachers are completing the modules. The modules are all virtual. We had an option of doing virtual or face-to-face. In many of our campuses initially chose face-to-face, but because of the pandemic, all training has transpired virtually. And so the modules you see here on the PowerPoint, the first 5 modules of the 10 modules, the topic for each of them. So it's the science of teaching reading is the basis of the Reading Academy theory and how students read and how they go from learning to read to reading to learn. And then the rest of the modules 3 through 8, takes teachers into those reading skills that we've been talking about here lately in the past couple of months, and really providing the capacity and the skills that teachers need to transform those reading skills into implementation steps for their students. And so we strategically chose principals for the monitoring piece, that not only are teachers engaged in the professional development over the 10 months, but that the teachers are implementing the reading steps with their students and they're monitoring their progress along the way. Next year, the teachers identified for training will then be our first grade teachers, our new kindergarten teachers coming in during 21-22, and then we will staircase that over to second and third grade. And if you notice, we started with kindergarten this year, and that's the group of the cohort of students that at the end of our 5 years, that they will be our third graders. So along the way, they will, the goal with that all the kindergarten students in that cohort, by the time they read their grade, they are reading on or above grade level.
Thank you so much for providing us more information on that. Is there a cap as to how many teachers are able to participate in the reading academies, or is it geared towards K teachers across the state?
Each district came up with their own training plan. So in HISD, we chose kindergarten. And the cap is, there is no cap. So it's all, the expectation is all kindergarten teachers, well, really all teachers, kindergarten through third grade, have to have the training within the 3-year span of reading academies.
Thank you, much appreciated. And the last question that I had, I know that if needed, we have until October 31st to go virtual. At this time, are there plans to, based on what we've heard tonight, it seems like we're moving forward with October 19th, and that there is, so I just wanted to confirm that.
That is confirmed unless something changes, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's all that I have. Thank you so much, Dr. Lathan, again for the presentation, we appreciate it.
Trustee Cruz.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Rodriguez, because that was going to be one of my questions. I've been wondering about that too, so that was a great explanation. Also, really like the COVID dashboard. I'm appreciative of that transparency, and I think that really just puts people's minds at ease when they can visually see, you know. Just a couple of questions, and I'll try to make it fast. So on page 9, on the special education, let me go back to it. So I know, you know, in the budget amendment that we're approving, you know, my understanding is to increase the support for the IEP. So we approved the budget for this support. How quickly can those folks be deployed to service the students? I mean, I'm assuming it's kind of like a process, right?
Great question. So if you approve the budget tonight, the ones that are involving contracts, as soon as the contracts are signed, but we already have the plan of whether deployment needs to be, who the students are that need those targeted services. And so it's just about the board approving the budget, getting all the contracts processed that need to be processed. And some are existing services like Amnio Speech, but we needed to increase the amount of spend.
Okay, great, thanks. And then what was the percentage of parents that responded? I know you had given us a number last week, and I know obviously there were phone calls made. Are we close to, you know, 100% of parents?
It was 87% as of today, 87%.
Okay, and you might have said that, sorry. And then my last question is on page 18, well, 18 and 19, when you were talking about all the devices and hotspots. So if everything that's purchased, has all of that money been accounted for already? Like, is that already in all the amendments and all that we've been asked to approve?
Yes, all the money is in the amendment. So that was in the amendment from September. This is October, from September's amendment. And then there will be some dollars, coming back in. I think it's about $9 million, and it's actually shown on packet page 358 or 357 in the amended budget.
And there's also $10 million in there for this month.
And $10 million for this month.
Okay, great news. Okay, that was all. Thank you for everyone's hard work.
Trustee Hernandez.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan, for the presentation. I had a question about on page 2. I see those numbers up there, 156, 177, 184. And then the total enrollment is about 196. So I was wondering what the discrepancy is there. So,
yes, we're coming.
Yes, ma'am. So some of the discrepancy is accounted for. A lot of it will fall with our younger students, our pre-K, our kindergarten students. They are in attendance, and their attendance is taken when they participate live, if you will, virtually on a Teams meeting. So they may not necessarily log onto the hub to submit an assignment on a Monday or a Thursday, but they do participate live with their teacher during Teams meetings, so the teacher is able to see them. They have read-alouds. And engage in those activities with their teachers. We also have, part of that difference is also students who use the unique curriculum versus the hub. And so those are our special education self-contained students on a differentiated curriculum. So that number is not captured in the 177 total here that you see as unique student logins.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for that explanation. And I have one other question on page 18. I believe it says that we have about 6,600 students who do not have a device, but there's only 100 and something students actually attending a virtual learning center. And so I was wondering what the discrepancy is there. Are the students deciding not to go into the virtual learning centers? And are those students learning in a different way?
Great question. So some students did make the decision when the digital learning centers were opened on September 8th. Some families made a decision not to send their students to the location. As it relates to the 6619, Chief Gilhousen, would you just explain that, please?
Good evening, Board Trustees. So the 6,600 at that time were the number of machines that within our HISD Connect system. We deploy those devices to those campuses, but they haven't necessarily reconciled that within the school. The other part to that is we've had where we've actually deployed the devices out, but the parents haven't actually picked up the device yet. And then some of the other discrepancies that we'll see that are added to that is as we start to make this transition into the physical on October the 19th, what some of the parents are opting for is that home device is starting to transition into a no device category, and that's what we're fulfilling there because some of those students have a desktop. They're not going to be able to bring a desktop to campus, so they're making a request for a laptop.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Sung?
Thank you. Many of my questions have been answered already. As a follow-up around the reading academies, so is the strategy we're pursuing is all the kinder teachers this year, and then are we going to go up the grade levels? Is that the plan? Is next year first grade, or?
Yes, that's the plan. Each year add a grade level.
Okay, very good. And we'll go back and pick up any new teachers. Is that right?
Yes, new teachers every year will also be trained.
Great, love it. You mentioned that specialty schools would be among the priorities. I think the second priority for busing. Could you say a little bit more about what specialty schools are?
So our specialty schools are our magnet schools and our specialized schools. So mainly it's the magnet schools where students are being transported across the district. And so that was the holdup for a number of parents opting not to choose face-to-face because they were worried about not having transportation.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then some of the speakers earlier were asking about parents being able to opt or switch their choice between virtual and face-to-face or face-to-face and virtual. Is that correct that parents can switch either way until school starts?
Parents can switch, and parents have been made aware of that. If parents call, we've shared with principals to be accommodating. And what I also was shared with teachers yesterday, I participated in a town hall with them, and we've shared with principals, if a parent has selected virtual, but they bring their child to school for face-to-face, we have to accept that child. And so it's going to go in both ways, and we know that for, I think, the next 2 months or so.
Okay, so even once school starts, parents can send their kids to school and then something could change and they say, oh no, we need to be virtual.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yes, ma'am, we're going to be accommodating. Well, we do have a concern as it relates really to high school because of the scheduling and credits, that we really want parents at the high school level to truly try to stick with that. But at the end of the day, we're going to accommodate the request of the parent and the student.
Okay, and then my final question has to do with aerosol transmission, which the CDC recently recognized. I know you've been thinking about that even ahead of that, looking at filtration, et cetera. I understand the district's also been ordering portable air filters. Can you say anything about those orders and their deployment?
We've actually been receiving quotes in the process of processing quotes as it relates to the air filtration systems, looking at the different types of the units for the systems, but mainly we've been gathering quotes around changing out the air filters throughout the buildings.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions for now.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Superintendent, real quickly, page 18, you talked about technology, and one thing that is of concern, I got a call just as recently as earlier today about the kids breaking the iPads, and I, for one, am I lost? I'm sorry.
We hear you. We hear you.
My screen changed here. But I, for one, was, not a proponent for spending a lot of money, but I'm not. I think that screen covers should be considered for those that may be dropping the iPads and breaking the screens. Is there a cost concern, or actually has that cost for screen covers been addressed? Have you even thought about that?
Yes, we have Chief Gilhousen respond to your question.
Okay.
As it relates to the iPads, we were focused on a lot of these iPad orders that we received were from the state. And so because the iPad covers that were coming from the state were delayed, we chose to actually deploy the iPads out there as quickly as we possibly could as soon as we received them. We received the iPad covers on September the 22nd, and we've been working to deploy those iPad covers to those various devices. On top of that, in the event that those devices need repair, we're going ahead and recovering that repair. So as those campuses work with us, we just get those devices repaired on our side, and we just do a hot swap for them so as they come about. We've not heard of too many, but the campuses do know that they can reach out to us and we'll handle the repairs.
And I appreciate that, Chief. I think Trustee Santos had sort of addressed it a couple of months ago early on. And I will say, too, that I'd like to give kudos to Dr. Lathan and all of your staff, because one thing that we didn't talk about much, and that was the teachers needing devices and having needing those hot spots. So kudos for that. We appreciate that because it's important, obviously. The other thing is we talked about on page 26, bus service availability. It was addressed at special ed kids and homeless kids. What about the 504 kids? If they have any, well, I know you couldn't do all 504 kids, but there are some that may have issues that may need transportation. Is that being addressed individually depending on the circumstances, or not at all?
That's a great question. It is being addressed individually. Depends on what their accommodation is in their plan, but they are included if that is what it calls for.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Trustee Santos.
Hi, thank you, Trustee Dygard, and thank you, Dr. Latham, for the presentation. Okay, so let's start off with piggyback off of Trustee Cruz. So for the special education resources, that was on page, I'm sorry, and I forgive me, Dr. Latham, if I asked your question twice. My internet went out, and then my little was...
It was page 9.
Page 9. Okay. So providing virtual services utilizing both HSS. So is the $17 million in I-5, is that going, what is that specifically going towards for special education?
As it relates to special education, it's going to contracted services for speech and language to help with the psychologists that need to conduct the evaluations. As a result of Child Find and us increasing the number of students that are qualifying and that need to be evaluated and qualifying for special education services, it's supporting OT for vacancies that we have in OT, so it's a contracted services there. Also for our deaf and hard of hearing program, there's a contract with UT Health to provide them support with getting those students evaluated. Deaf and hard of hearing. Also, it will support some additional intensive support teams. The intensive support teams, trustees, you approved a budget of those 2019-20 budget. You approved some of those teams, and last year we're adding 5 additional teams that includes a mental health specialist, co-teachers, behavior technicians, and teaching assistants. And so that's what the request is as it relates to the budget amendment for tonight.
All right, and then I'll move on to another special population. What are our demographics of students that are coming back face to face? Do you have that?
I don't have it broken down by demographics. We have just the percentage of that selected face-to-face and the percentage is selected virtual. In order to get, I would have to get that information back to you.
Please do so, because I'm worried about our English language learners. They're not having that conversation time in class, so they're not practicing their English speaking skills, and that's just another thing to worry about when we're coming back face-to-face, especially if teachers are teaching both virtually and in person simultaneously. That don't have the sufficient technology, or like me, their internet drops, we're going to lose a lot of instructional time and independent practice and so forth. So I really want to just be very mindful. I mean, we want, we want to make sure that we're including our kids, our most vulnerable students. Additionally, with special education, I would like this, Dr. Latham, I'm going to flag this and how we can permanently support special education with those $17 million moving forward. So we'll bake that into next year's budget. Okay, next, let's see. That one. What do teachers do when campus administration is not following the reopening plan and they don't feel comfortable going back to the principal? And again, Dr. Latham, this is, I know people think that this is your doing, but I want to clarify.
Santos, you're out of time. Can she answer your question?
If a staff member is not comfortable to their immediate supervisor, they are to contact the supervisor of that particular manager or principal. So they should follow the progressive discipline or progressive chain of authority as it relates to contacting that person's supervisor.
And I have one more question. Are we doing round 2?
If you want to do a round 2, then y'all need to sign up in the queue to do a second round. Trustee Santos?
Thank you. So Dr. Latham, will TAD be adjusted since many teachers will be doing virtual and face-to-face now? I just want to make sure that our teachers are being treated fairly and that we give them the proper amount of takeoff time for for all their evaluation.
I didn't hear what you said at the beginning. You were breaking up. Do you need me to get you a hotspot?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear your first part of what you were asking. TADS? TADS. I'm sorry, I didn't understand it. No, as it relates, if you recall, you've already approved the appraisal process for 2020-21. Tonight, you're just being asked to approve those who have been certified to appraise teachers.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying, I think I was under the impression when we approved that, that teachers were going to either be doing virtual or face-to-face. And now, because they're being asked to do both, it's just, are we going to give them some grace when it comes to evaluate? Like, are their administrators going to just be understanding of teachers and their evaluations when they're teaching both face-to-face and virtually?
So let me say this. We're going to follow the appraisal process. Everyone understands that we, like you said, we do need to provide grace, but we also still have to educate our children. And so we'll follow that process, understanding that empathy needs to be given for someone that's in both formats, a virtual format and also a face-to-face format. But we are encouraging everyone, and that is really our policy. They have to follow the appraisal process. And if there are concerns, during our consultation meetings, we discussed that with our teacher associations and also our administrators association.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Lidden. One more question. I'll put it in as a referral. You don't have to answer this right now. But can we get a breakdown of how many children that are returning to HISD are HISD students, like their parents are HISD employees?
Can you get what now?
The number of employees that are sending their kids to schools.
I don't know if it's HISD schools.
Like, so Trustee Sung has 2 kids at school. Trustee Hernandez has 3 kids at school. Oh, well, wait, you're not employees. I'm sorry. So Dr. Lathan has 3 kids in school. Chief Rodriguez has 4. And all of the employees, how many HISD employees have kids in the HISD school?
I don't know if we keep that data that way. Like I said, we'll make a note, but I don't think we keep it that way. And the only way we have information if it's an employee that lives out of district and they request for their child to attend, but they still have to go through the process. So we don't necessarily keep data like that.
Okay. All right. I was just thinking for the purpose of consistency, because if we have people that are missing, then their kids or our students are going to be missing as well. And if you have to quarantine at home, just wanting to keep consistent. Okay, my little's calling me also. I'll enter that in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trustee Villaseca, Flynn Villaseca.
When's the last time you took the medicine?
Thank you, Madam President. Going back to the supports for special education, I'm wondering if are there any additional anticipated supports that you think or amendments that we'll be expecting before the next budget cycle as it relates to SPED and COVID related as well?
Probably yes to both. Definitely COVID related. When we bring, let's see, did we talk about January? When did we talk about the next COVID? There's a possibility. If we,
this amendment gets us to January.
This amendment gets us to January. As it relates to special education, I doubt it. But as we go through and make revisions to our special education strategic plan, we will be planning to build that into the 21-22 budget if there are any other services that are needed that does not impede students making progress on their IEPs.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so it gets us through January and the COVID related. Are we still able to document and possibly get some of those expenses reimbursed?
Chief Reed.
So we are documenting all those purchases. We have a way of tracking that in the system. Right now, we don't have any sources, but yes, if we do have some funds come to us, whether it's federal dollars or state dollars, to be able to get reimbursement, then we will have the documentation to be able to apply for that.
Okay, thank you so much. I also did see a press release that came through on, I think October 1st, maybe a week ago or so, that the state's allowing us to be held harmless for an additional 6 weeks.
Yes, for the first 12 weeks of school.
Oh, is it? Okay, I thought I said, is it first 12 weeks or first 18 weeks?
18 weeks. Yeah, 18 weeks.
Okay. Okay, good news. Okay, thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Sang?
Just a quick follow-up. Did we submit in September for that 75% reimbursement for COVID expenses from last year?
Yes, we did. We'll get back about.
Fingers crossed that we get some money back.
Yeah, we should get back about 13 million.
Great. Thank you. That's all I had.
So I have two quick questions. One, Dr. Lathan, I want to make sure that I heard correctly that every student whose parents have requested that they get a device or that they need a device has been provided with a device.
Yes, and including children, because I want to point this out because other districts haven't done this, including children that are in a household where you have more than one child. Every child has their own device if they've requested it.
So if 2 or 3 children in one house have requested a device, all of the children have a device?
Yes.
So the only children that wouldn't have a device are ones who have not requested it?
Not requested it and not picked them up or been at home when we've tried to deliver them.
And I just want, pause that, acknowledge the 7th largest district in the country, the largest district in the state of Texas, that if there is a blessing to COVID, that we have digitized all of our kids. And that's a really big deal. And so if there's a bright light this year, we've accomplished that. And I just think we need to take a moment and reflect on what we've accomplished with that. So, thank you. To myself, I think it's really easy on the loss of students, or the decline in students, that we're not back to where we were last year, to presume that they're not in school. And I know I asked you this question offline, but I think it's valuable for my colleagues to hear this as well. So if one of our kids from last year shows up in another district, if that district does the appropriate paperwork, we'll at least know the kid's in school somewhere, right?
Right, because we receive a request for their records.
But that won't necessarily happen with private school.
Private schools ask for records.
They do.
Okay.
So for
most of them do.
And when will we start knowing that kind of feedback?
That's ongoing throughout the year.
It's ongoing.
As students move.
So at some point later this year, could we? I mean, I know we wouldn't have it right now, but later this year, if you could break down that decline, if we continue to have a decline, that we know that some kids have, let's say there are 5,000 kids still behind, that this many of them we know have shown up someplace else. Is that a possibility?
We can look at a Levers report. We used to call it a Levers report. I don't know if it's in our new system. That's what we're calling it. Something like a Levers report that tells transfers out.
Okay.
So I will make a note of that.
I think that just might be helpful. That just reassures us that they're somewhere. And then that can even tell us if they're in a charter, another ISD, or private.
Let's check to see what it tells us.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Real quickly, so most of the children that we have not reported back, would those be primarily pre-Ks, kindergartners for the most part?
We're down in the elementary schools, the kindergarten, first grade. I know we're definitely down there. We're down at pre-K. And like I said, I expect over the next several months, hopefully, that those students will return, or those students that haven't shown up as far as pre-K, parents will enroll them, hopefully.
And I appreciate that, because I just wanted the general public to know that that's where a lot of our lag is with pre-K and kindergarten. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Lathan. Moving on, colleagues, we have several items that are posted for discussion tonight, and we also have hearing of the community. So what I'm going to, unless there are objections from my colleagues, I'm going to ask that we vote for our items that are that we're voting on. Excuse me. We conduct our votes first, then we do hearing of the community, and then we do our discussions about the different committee reports and board operating procedures, and there are a couple of other things that are posted just for discussion. So,
go back to page 2. I need you to read that first. Consideration of superintendent's agenda items. Can you read that?
Oh, sorry. We are ready to move on to the agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that agenda items B3, F1, and G1 were revised. The attachments to agenda items B2, B5, and I5 are new, and attachments to agenda items G1 and I3 were revised. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. Are there any objections to me taking the agenda out of order this evening? Seeing none.
Page 4. Because those are discussions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are discussions. You said you would take the agenda items. They start on page 4.
I still need to read what's on.
Trustee Dygard, I'm sorry, I almost missed it. What did you pull my agenda items that I asked for?
Did you email Ms. Trin before 8 a.m. on Monday to ask for items to be pulled?
No, I did not. No.
Okay. So we will now consider items that are held for abstention and or discussion. There's only one that is pulled from the consent agenda by law. So let me finish this. So each month, all action items begin on the consent agenda. If a trustee would like an item held from consent, they need to notify the district chief of staff, Sylvia Trin, by 8 a.m. on the Monday prior to the voting meeting. And actually, let's take care of this. First, we're going to announce the board member continuing education credits under agenda item B1, announcement of required board member continuing education. No vote will be taken on this item. This is simply an announcement of the credit hours for the record. I can't hear you. You're choppy.
I asked if you were ignoring me. Were you able to pull those items?
Did you email Ms. Trin by 8 a.m. on Monday? Okay. When we get to that, when we get to the vote, we will address that. Okay. When we get to that part of the agenda, we will address if you want something pulled, what that process is. In accordance with the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 61, subsection A61, an announcement as to the status of board members' continuing education must be made by the board president at the last regular board meeting before an election of trustees. Board policy BBD local, board members training and orientation states that the board president will annually announce the status of each board member's continuing education at the last meeting before the district's regular uniform election date, even if an election is not scheduled or held. The following board members have completed the Tier 1 orientation to the Texas Education Code and or legal update, Tier 2 team building training, Tier 3 annual continuing education and ISO training requirements. Trustee Bluford Daniels, Trustee Hernandez, Trustee Allen, Trustee Dygard, Trustee Flynn Villaseca, Trustee Sung, Trustee Cruz, Trustee Adams. The following board member is pending training requirements and has until October 31st, 2020 to complete those training requirements. Trustee Santos. So now moving on to agenda item I4, approval of resolution adopting tax rate and levying ad valorem taxes for tax year 2020. This by law cannot be on a consent agenda per state statute, tax code 26.05. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Trustee Cruz.
Oh, wait. Okay, no. So the motion, whoever's making the motion, do you have the agenda in front of you? Or, excuse me, the script in front of you? Okay. Ms. McBride, can I read what this motion is, or does the person making the motion have to read it?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. It would be better if the person making the motion made it. Is it the motion that the Board of Education approves property taxes being increased?
Yes.
That is actually on the agenda item itself, the recommendation from the board. So any board member making the motion just needs to read the language on the agenda item.
Thank you. Okay, so whoever wants to read the motion, it is in the item.
By recommended.
It needs to be read just like it's in the script. Okay, so you all should have a copy of the script. It would have been emailed to you earlier today in your meeting packet.
What page of the script?
Page 4. It's in the middle of the page. It's the 5th line down below a dotted line. And it's highlighted in yellow.
Page 4 is missing in the copy of the script that I have. That was in the blue folder.
Same.
All right, then President Dygard, would you just ask for the motion that you want and state the language, and then whoever is going to make the motion say that you move President Dygard's language.
Okay.
I can motion from the page, from the recommendation.
They're telling me it needs to be from what's
I don't
in
think
the
it's
script.
the same.
Okay.
I think what's in the script is different.
So I'll read this, and then somebody needs to say they move that we approve what I just read. Okay. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of $1.13 of $1.13 per each $100. So 1.1331, which is effectively a 5.71% increase in the tax rate. And further move that the Board of Education approve the resolution and ordinance adopting the tax rate and levy ad valorem taxes for the year 2020 as reflected in the resolution.
I move that the motion is carried as Trustee Dygard read it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I need you to read this first. Please. Right there.
During the 2020-2021 budget development cycle, the addition of the additional golden penny only available to districts in 2020-2021 was discussed in all workshops and during the June public hearing on budget and tax rate. For the district to receive funds associated with the additional golden penny of about $24 million, the adoption of the tax rate must be unanimous. These are recurring funds to the district, and if not approved, would impact the district's budget in the current and all future years. So what I'm hearing is this is what we discussed in June when we passed our budget, that it was the understanding that we were going to have to vote unanimously on this tonight. Yes. Okay. So, are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? And colleagues, as a reminder, in keeping with our 1-minute norms of voting items at regular meetings, we will do one round of 1 minute per trustee. Seeing no, Trustee Santos, is that you for this item?
No, it was for B1.
Okay. So please vote. I remember my paddles. And please keep your paddles up until board services pops up the screen.
So we're just voting on We didn't have discussion on B1. You just read it. That's it.
There's no vote on B1. Which one was B1? What I just read of all the
continuing education?
Yeah, that's not a voting or discussion. It's just an announcement. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes. Thank you. Okay, so now this is the problem with taking things out of order. All right, consideration. Okay, we are now ready to consider the balance of today's agenda. Remember, since no one had requested items to be pulled from consent prior to 8 a.m. on Monday in accordance with our board norms, and I'm hearing that somebody would like to pull something from consent, that would need to be separated out of this with a motion, a second, and a vote by our board colleagues. So, but that can only happen after there is a motion and a second to approve the balance of today's agenda by consent. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this where I move to separate, or it's after this I move to separate?
This is where you would move to separate, presuming there's a second and 5 votes.
Okay, so really quickly, I need a point of clarification, Trustee Dygard. We are going to discuss B2 and B5 tonight.
So I don't have my agenda with me. So B2 and B5, those are posted for discussion, not a vote, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, right. We are going back to all those discussion items.
Okay, so I'd like to move to pull F1 and I5, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And the discussion is I'm pulling the items. Please vote. It's not correct. Item passes to pull. The item passes to pull to separate from the consent agenda items F1 and I5. 6, 4, 3 opposed, 0 abstentions. Okay, so now, Ms. McBride, a motion needs to be made for those pulled items for a vote, correct?
Yes, you could do it either way. You could go ahead and approve the consent agenda without those items, F1 and I5,
Okay,
or you can go ahead and...
Let's go ahead and do that. So we've separated those two from consent. So now the motion on the table still is to approve. Do we have to make another motion to approve what's left?
You need to make another motion because the consent agenda has become smaller.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the consent agenda as modified?
Or just minus F1 and I5.
Minus F1 and I5. Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, Blueford Daniels.
Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. We are now, so F1 and I5 would be 2 separate items, correct, Ms. McBride? Okay. So is there a motion to approve, a motion for item F1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And remember, it is one round of 1 minute. Trustee Santos?
I'm just pulling to remain consistent with my votes on DOI and how during a pandemic, we should not be going out and doing a district of innovation. If we read this agenda back in 1993, if we had an agenda back in 2012, we are not acting like a board that is under a global pandemic. More importantly, my colleagues that voted against not pulling this item, I challenge you to have a son and be 14 hours a day working with community members, your son, and being the only one at home doing that, because that's what the majority of our community is working and trying to get it together. So anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Please vote. Motion passes, 8 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item held is I-5. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Oh, here. Let me type my name. I'm called out again.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just needed a little help, Dr. Lathan, understanding this. I read my agenda when we had it for agenda review, and it wasn't on there. And then I got it today. So could you help me to understand I-5? I know you started to, Dr. Lathan, whenever we talked about
Yes, Chief Reed will provide you an overview of the requested budget amendment.
For some reason, mine did not print off. It said mine didn't print off. So the budget amendment, what we're asking for is the $41 million that's broken down into the really 4 main categories: the special education, the PPE, the cleaning and sanitizing, as well as the devices. So what the actual budget amendment is telling you, we also have a column on here that says budget neutral transfers. That just means that people have transferred money between functions. The balance is 0, so it doesn't increase the budget. It's just people are moving budgets around. So it's really just asking the board for an amendment to, 1, approve the transfers that have been done by campuses and departments. And it's also asking for an increase in the budget of the $41 million for those 4 items that I mentioned, for those 4 categories.
So, Ms. Chief Reed, could you help me to understand right here where it says carryover, 8,507,693,000? Like, that's, you're saying that the money's being shuffled around. So we have that carryover.
That is funding that comes over from the prior year. And actually that $8.5 million is state compensatory dollars that we need to spend to ensure that we're compliant with our state comp ed expenditures.
Okay, so then if we move that, okay. So would that have been allocated in the budget?
In 1920, yeah. And we're bringing it into the 2021 school year so that we can use those dollars to support students in 2021. It is for at-risk and economically disadvantaged students.
And the state compensatory dollars, that's not state compensatory dollars coming back from other campuses, and it's just being reshuffled around. I just need to help understanding where this money is going.
It's just dollars we're carrying over from 1920 for at-risk students to spend in 2021. So we have to bring it over into the new year. We can't spend the dollars out of the prior year, so we have to bring them into the new year to be able to spend those dollars towards that student population.
Okay, so it's not been allocated anywhere specifically. We're just bringing it over.
It did not come out of campus budgets from last year.
Okay, so that makes sense because my next question is going to be, I was wondering why it wasn't reducing that $14.5 million.
Trustee Santos, is that your question?
So it doesn't reduce. It's the amount we're bringing over into the budget that increases the 2021 budget.
I just, because I thought it was a total of 50, asking the board for a total of $55 million.
No, the actual appropriation increase itself is the $41 million, where we're increasing appropriations to purchase things.
Mm-hmm. And that's the instruction.
Trustee Santos, you're out of time. Seeing no further speakers in the queue, please vote. Eight in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Item passes. All right, so that can, oh wait, let's do closed session. Then I want to let the hearing of the community happen. So let's do our closed session votes. And then we'll do hearing of the community, and then we'll come back for our discussion items. So motions from closed session. Who has those to read?
I do. Ready? Closed session motions for October 8th. I move that the board authorizes the board president and interim superintendent to sign and submit the safety and security audit to the Texas School Safety Center as presented in closed session effective October 9, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorizes the district to settle the matter of Terry Alanine versus Houston Independent School District in 133rd Judicial District Court, Harris County. Texas cause number 2019-10893 on the terms discussed in closed session effective October 9, 2020.
Is there any discussion? Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorizes the district to settle cause number 2019-30627, Barrett Cameron Tahiv versus Houston Independent School District in the District Court, Harris County. Texas 80th Judicial District on the terms discussed in closed session effective October 9, 2020.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Please vote. Eight in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. Item passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorizes the district to settle the subrogation lien of Jane Haywood against Elias Salgado and the United Automobile Insurance for workers' compensation benefits. United Automobile Insurance claim number 0800-18258-3001-Y45 on the terms discussed in closed session effective October 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. Eight in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. Item passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorizes the district to settle the I move that the Board of Education, the board authorizes the district to intervene and settle the subrogation lien of Sharon Petaway against Francisco Celio Caballero for the workers' compensation benefits cause number 2020-48027 on the terms discussed in closed session October 9, 2020.
Please vote. 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Item passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board authorizes the interim superintendent on her or her designee to negotiate, execute, and amend the field license agreement with Memorial Ashford Little League and Memorial Ashford Girls Softball Association for the use of the athletic fields adjacent to Ray Daly Elementary site on the terms discussed in closed session effective October 9th, 2020.
Second.
Please vote. Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board approve the 2019-2020 superintendent evaluation process timeline and instrument on the terms discussed in closed session effective October 9th, 2020.
Second.
Please vote. Item passes. 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Next item, please.
I move that the board approve the settlement and release agreement with Evangeline Campos, principal of Brownie Elementary School, on the terms discussed in closed session, effective October 9th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Oh.
8 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes.
No opposed, no opposed, no opposed.
Oh, okay, you just had the wrong. Okay, so.
I just like red.
9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes. This is why it's good that we're using the screen that pops up. Next item, please.
I move that the board approves a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts without district consent under Section 21-105C, 21.160C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code as discussed in closed session, and authorizes the interim superintendent or her designee to submit a written complaint to SBEC to impose sanctions effective October 9th, 2020.
Your second?
Second.
Please vote. That's got the right idea. 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes. Next item, please. Oh, wait. Nope, that wasn't right. There's an abstention. Everybody put your paddles back up. Okay. 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Item passes. Next item, please.
I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically the board approved separation and release agreements, that the board approve withdrawals of contract recommendations, and that the board approve issuance of the final orders on contract terminations and non-renewals, as discussed in closed session, effective October 9th, 2020.
Is there a second? Anybody want to make a second?
Second.
I'm sorry.
Please vote.
Second.
Nine in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Item passes. Next item, please.
I'm done, Madam President. Thank you.
All righty. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 29th, 2020 workshop and October 1st, 2020 agenda review?
So move, Adams.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And while you're voting, thank Board Services for these awesome paddles.
I'm in the queue.
Oh, sorry, Trustee Sung.
Yeah, just a request. If we could get a note in advance of a meeting when we're voting on minutes, which minutes that are up for a vote, I'd appreciate that.
Trustee Song, your request was that they be posted with the agenda, and that's what we did.
Okay, so in the agenda, we've got the specific items now of which minute?
Yes, that was your request, and
okay,
we
great.
honored that this week.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Item passes 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. Alrighty, so we are going to move on to hearing of the community. We've now come to the portion of our meeting where we normally hear from our community. We are glad you have joined us online today. In response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, the Hattie Mae White Educational Support Center is operating at a reduced capacity and the board auditorium is closed. However, it is still important that we allow time to hear from our community. In order to have your voices heard by the HISD Board of Education, you must have registered to speak with the Board Services Office by 9:30 a.m. today. Speakers should have left a telephone number when registering. District staff will call registered speakers and place them in a Zoom virtual waiting room until time for them to speak. Speakers may also have submitted written comments to be read publicly by a member of the district's administration in case there is a problem with Zoom. Should any registered speaker wish to distribute handout materials to the board, the materials must have been provided to board services via email at boardservices@houstonisd.org by 9:30 a.m. today. We have 17 members of the community who have registered to speak or submitted comments to be read aloud during this portion of the meeting. Comments should be limited to 300 words or 1 minute each. Please refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Abusive statements or threats of confrontation are not permitted, and any comments in violation of these guidelines will not be read. And also, I'd like to check in with our staff. So, what is your process for calling these speakers? So it sounds like there's about 3 attempts to call people.
The process is we call 3 times on the dais. If no one answers, I send a text message to another staff member to call them from an office phone. Then we try 2 more times on the dais.
Okay, so it's 5 times that you make an attempt to call them before we read their comments.
Actually 6. So it's 5 at the dais and 1 in the office. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I'm turning it over to you all to tee up the speakers. Thank you.
Okay, our first speaker is Jackie Mullen. Ms. Mullen, you have 1 minute. You may begin.
Oh, hello. My name's Jackie Mullen. I am calling representing T.H. Rogers. It's a school which has PSI and children who have hearing difficulties. And it's my issue is the hours. We have the SDNC committee approved hours to be, as in every previous year, from 7:45 to 3:15 p.m. And this is because our children need to be able to leave early and return early enough to get home to follow their normal routines. There's lots of concerns now with this new imposed hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. that the board has imposed on the school, because our children are special ed, their local neighborhood schools are unable to service their education needs, so they get schooling at T.H. Rogers. Some of our children need to eat every 2 hours, some of them need diaper changes, some of them suffer seizures, sometimes being long hours inside the bus, and because of the noise of the bus, it triggers the seizures. And one parent has said with these new hours, her child will be sitting in a wheelchair close to 5 p.m., which is far too long. And more importantly, her feeding schedule is also going to be interrupted. So it's very critical not to have these drastic hour changes. To our family and friends and staff, it's shocking that HISD is making no accommodations for our RSPD.
Our next speaker is Lucia Moreno. Ms. Moreno, you have 1 minute. You may begin.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm reading this for a coworker who has COVID and is in the hospital and couldn't do this. Laying here on my hospital bed tonight, thinking to myself, is it worth sacrificing my life for a couple of dollars to do what I love? My passion is teaching, and it was not an easy road to reach. I came from Mexico and put myself through evening classes to become a teacher.
But remembering the fact, I sent an email to my superintendent, copied the school board trustee and the president of HFT. Explained the dilemma that I had not been able to get any responses or results from HR concerning my COVID-19 FMLA. One trustee responded to me, and I'd like to thank Trustee Sun. The rest, I heard crickets. Well, it was like I didn't exist and no one cared after 13 years of service to this district. Finally, after 3 weeks, I received an answer.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eli Woody. Mr. Woody, you may begin.
Thank you. My name is Eli Woody. I'm a 7th-year teacher, first year to HISD. This summer, I heard what sounded like a responsible superintendent. She spoke to members of the press about starting our school year with virtual learning. Verbatim, she said when asked that if we are still in code red with COVID after the first 6 weeks of virtual learning, we will do another 6 weeks virtual after that. So here we are, still in code red for COVID. And the words we heard this summer have turned from a hopeful message into a lie. And yesterday, all staff received an email saying that in our return to work, safety will be the district's utmost concern. If safety truly was the district's utmost concern, the district would be doing what health agencies such as the CDC say is the safest for schools in hotbed cities like Houston, virtual learning. Is it perfect? No. Is it difficult for teachers and families? Yes. But it is the safest. Do not tell your staff and communities that safety is your utmost concern. It is clearly not. Platitudes don't save lives. Logical leadership.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zach Moser. Mr. Moser, you have 1 minute. You may begin.
Yes, my name is Zach Moser. I'm the father of 2 HISD students, retired HISD teacher. I'm appalled at Governor Abbott for trying to force us all to go against public health recommendations and reopen schools before reasonable efforts are made to control community spread of this dangerous virus. That said, the rationale following when our teachers and families' lives are in your hands. You are the last line of defense for our teachers. You can make a stand and not force teachers to play Russian roulette. Having to choose between giving up your livelihood and career or risk your health and life is fundamentally unjust and authoritarian. You can make a stand for all of us who are sick of this governor forcing his dangerous and unjust policies on our communities. But if schools reopen in this way, lives will be lost and they'll be on your hands. Instead, let's take a stand and start here on the road back to sane public policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Goodman. Ms. Goodman, you may begin. Catherine Goodman, you have one. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
HISD continues to barrel forward with an unsafe and under-resourced plan that does not protect students or teachers. We just heard Dr. Lathan say they were in the process of getting quotes for air filters. Besides this, we are all being put at risk by Governor Abbott's unscientific, politically motivated decision to reopen schools on a timeline set months ago and completely unrelated to the actual situation on the ground here in Houston. I'm a parent of 2 HISD students, and I know that teachers don't want to be forced to go back into classrooms without true safety measures. Hygiene theater does not cut it. I know that parents who are ready to send their children back to school changed their minds because of the obvious flaws in HISD's plan. We need time to do this right and in conjunction with public health guidelines. This is the only way to protect our educators, our school staff, our children, and our families. I have to believe that there are trustees and others in leadership that can see that HISD and Houston are not ready to reopen schools. It's not too late to make changes, but it will be soon. We cannot let the governor, who is not using his powers to protect Texans, make this decision for our community. Please act.
Thank you. Wayne Hool. Mr. Hool, you may begin.
My name is Wayne Hool. I'm a 9-year veteran of HISD. I teach at Bel Air High School, ESL World History and AP World History. I'm very lucky to have good leadership there. Not all schools have that. The 6-foot to 3-foot rule, that's what I'm talking about. Really don't have enough time. But I understand that decisions are being made due to the governor's decrees and laws laid down by a commissioner who doesn't have the credentials necessary to even speak about school safety, let alone make decisions that will cost students and families lives. The disruption this is going to cause is insurmountable. But we're educators. We know better than they do. We understand what's going to happen when we shove a bunch of people into a classroom together during a deadly pandemic. HISD, we must push back face-to-face learning for the safety of our community and our students.
Thank you. Coretta Fontenot. Ms. Fontenot, you may begin.
Good evening. I'm Coretta Fontenot, and I'm addressing item B3, community engagement. I want to start off by saying that, contrary to what has been stated during this meeting, I never received a call tonight prior to now. On October 19th, students will be returning to school, and as you all know, the more people you put into a confined area, the more COVID cases you will have. Governor Abbott has not done much to ensure the health, safety, and well-being of students, staff, and faculty. What criteria will you use to determine if we return to virtual learning? At this point, both of my daughters and their families have contracted COVID. My youngest grandson, who is only 1 year old, also contracted COVID. My best friend's husband passed away. And my cousin, who was a former HISD student, passed away because doctors admitted that they were too overwhelmed from treating COVID patients and could not provide him the level of care that he required. Some additional points of concern that I have are this fake and phony community engagement. We need a phase-in.
Gertrude Hilty. Ms. Hilty, you may begin. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Good evening. In regards to safely reopening schools in a pandemic, do school administrators understand that they need to defer all decisions on COVID-19 isolation protocols, quarantine, isolation timelines, etc., to the school nurse? If nurses are going to be held accountable, then they need the authority to use their nursing judgment when these decisions are being made. In regards to the student isolation area, nurses should not have to man the isolation area. It would be better for an aide or a clerk to be assigned. If a nurse is assigned to the area full-time, you lose nursing services for that day. During that time, such as G-tube feedings, catheterizations, anaphylaxis. Additionally, any time the nurse would have to leave the isolation area, they would have to completely change the PPE. The nurse would, I believe also that a parent...
We will read the remainder of the community comments. Isabella Vasquez. The use of dead names on Microsoft Teams and the inability to change them. The use of dead names on Microsoft Teams is something that many transgender students have been struggling with ever since we switched to virtual school. A dead name is the name given at birth for people who have changed it. Many of them go by a name that is not their legal name, but with Microsoft Teams, they're unable to change the name their teachers and peers see without getting it legally changed. Many students don't have time or resources to get their name legally changed, so they're stuck with feeling uncomfortable and discriminated against. If HISD could provide transgender students with accessibility to change their names and pronouns, it would offer a more comfortable and inclusive learning environment.
Brenda Hernandez. I'm a parent of 3 children in the East End who are all zoned to Briscoe Elementary School, and as a student of this same school over 30 years ago, I feel compelled to help improve the school that is currently at a very low enrollment and underperforming. We have searched for alternative options of where to send our kids and search for a better option than the school they are zoned to. I strongly believe that if we had a Montessori program at this school, it would be able to turn Briscoe around and become a top elementary school. We have no option for Montessori schools on the east side of downtown and strongly feel that a dual language Montessori school would fit the needs of the community, increase enrollment at this school, and would have strong involvement from parents with children who attend a Montessori school.
Shannon Langman. Make Briscoe Elementary a Montessori school. As a parent in the East End, I have searched for a well-performing elementary to send my son to since we are zoned to Briscoe. As alternative options to the low-performing Briscoe, we have reached a Montessori option, but there currently aren't any in the East End area. To increase enrollment and performance of Briscoe, I believe making it into a Montessori school would give our community a great option, and we wouldn't consider moving closer to a better school system.
Stephanie Gaskin. I'm a parent of a 2-year-old that lives in the East End, and we're currently zoned to Briscoe Elementary and HISD. I'm very concerned with future schooling for my son, and we have even discussed moving out of the area that we have enjoyed living in for the past 8 years due to a lack of options for high-performing schools. I taught in HISD at one of the local elementary schools for close to 5 years and want to see a positive change in education not only for my son, but for future students that attend our local schools. Currently, I drive all the way to Kingwood in the mornings to send my son to a Montessori school up there and love the environment, positivity, and the independence that it gives to the students that attend. I strongly believe that if we turn Briscoe into a dual-language Montessori program, it would improve student learning, increase scoring, and make it a desirable school that parents would be happy to send their children to.
Louis Latimer. As a resident of the city of Houston and an HISD parent, I'm here to request that HISD 1, commit to 6-foot social distancing and small class size. 2, invest in COVID testing. 3, widely publicize to parents that they can change to remote instruction at any time. 61% of HISD parents have chosen remote instruction as the best option for their children. Some schools are at just 25% for in-person instruction. HISD needs to tell parents the truth, that students will sit behind laminated dividers in classrooms with poor ventilation on a computer just as they would for remote instruction. Only if principals and area leadership follow CDC guidelines will students be 6 feet apart. Only lower face-to-face numbers ensure a safer reopening and will save lives. While the governor is to blame for denying funding to school districts who do not reopen, we must hold our district accountable for the lives of students, school workers, and families.
Alba Chavez Cruz. My name is Alba Chavez Cruz. I'm an HIC parent and a teacher. As a parent, I have been lied to since my daughter's teacher will have to divide her attention between virtual and in-person classrooms. As a teacher, I have been lied to. I was told I was getting to a traditional classroom setting, but observing the safety protocols. As a teacher, I'm not afraid to work hard, but right now I'm working around the clock, barely being there for my family. I go to sleep worried and anxious because I never finish my work. How am I going to handle 2 full-time jobs when I'm barely holding on to 1? So finally, I'm asking HISD to honor their word and not have us teach both virtual and in person, or if you do, assign us help. Otherwise, there will be an exodus of great teachers from this district.
Carmen Nuncio. The safety of our students, teachers, and staff must come first. Virtual is better right now. For parents who did not turn in their survey, you should not make them face-to-face. You should default them to virtual. So many people are getting sick and dying with COVID in my community. You must delay reopening until at least the end of October. We're still on alert red. You need to be honest with us instead of keeping us in the dark. If not, how can we know our babies and the teachers who care for them are safe? We thought there would be social distancing, and at the last minute you cut it to 3 feet. That is nothing. We entrust our kids to you, and you are letting us down. How can we reopen without free rapid tests and contact tracing? Families in my community cannot afford the rapid COVID test, so what happens in our poor communities? Do we just wait until we infect each other and get the school closed down? Don't kill our kids. Please listen to what we are saying. Our kids are our pride and joy. We are counting on you.
Sister Mama Sonia. 2020 has been a hell of a year filled with misery and not much cheer. The killing of George Floyd pulled the blanket off of the ever-present racism in America, igniting rallies, marches, and demonstrations. From the youngest of the young to the oldest of the old, the embers of protest remain hot, never going cold. When the students come back to school and want to have that Black Lives Matter discussion, are the teachers ready to engage in meaningful conversations? When the students press to talk about this difficult topic, are the teachers ready to listen and not turn this into a discipline issue? If not, do you have plans to in-service them on how to have that difficult talk on race by providing a safe and protected space? Now, COVID-19 adds a quite disturbing twist to the 2020 conundrum, a wretched disease that has wrecked us to the core, and then some as the campuses go live on October 19th. It's doubtful that this wretched disease would have lost its sting. There are many concerns about opening too soon, like exposing our children, teachers, maintenance aides, administration, bus drivers, anyone in the building to the disease, wreaking havoc and causing them to close right back down. How will you keep masks on elementary kids, seniors for that matter, all day long?
Anthony Day. Here to voice that the return to schools in the fashion HISD has chosen simply does not reconcile the fact that we putting the lives of students and their families, teachers, and staff in harm's way, potentially undoing the progress that Houston has made. This screams that politics and money determine the course of our lives and not the citizens of our community. A determination that there is an acceptable loss, and I would say that again screams that we do not value science or those in our community that have been impacted hardest from COVID. I ask that you postpone face-to-face education as far as you can and continue to do so until vaccines, testing, and contact tracing is fully in swing. That concludes our hearing of the community. Oh, I'm sorry, I may have missed somebody. There's nobody in. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. You have 1 minute.
One?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to commend each board member and the superintendent and your team first on all that you've done. But I come here to implore you to do something on behalf of the students in my zip code and all zip codes in the area. Stand together, not separated, for the students, faculty, and staff, and families, and foremost, they elected you to do something like entrusting you to do something for their kids on their behalf. Now more than ever, you need to make them a priority. Think of the zip codes with thousands of missing students and staff and teachers who are worried for them. Don't use your time and energy pandering to selfish, male-dominated political agencies' agenda. You're the most diverse group of governing women and the most powerful position in the educational state of Texas. Lead like it. Shirley Chisholm said that women have learned to flex their political muscle. You have to flex that muscle to get what you want. The people who put you there are counting on your voice and to focus on the needs of the children and not an LSG agenda that leaves no room for pandemic conditions or, better yet, compassion for humankind. In such a time as
thank you.
Use your power.
Now that concludes our hearing of the community.
Thank you. All right, so we've conducted our business. We have heard from our community. Now we have several items that were posted for discussion this evening. And I'm going to actually, unless there are objections from my colleagues, take these a little out of order as well. We've got some updates from different committees. But we also have, well, I think let's just take them in order. Never mind. So we're going to start with these remaining B items. Agenda item B2, update from the Audit Committee Chair. Trustee Flynn Villaseca is the chair of this committee. Would you please lead the discussion and just give a very brief update? And colleagues, if you have questions, let's make them brief. Take it away, Trustee Flynn Villaseca.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to provide a brief update on the August 19th, 2020. Welcome the new Audit Committee community volunteer. Her name is Elizabeth Logan. The board approved her as the nominee committee volunteer full board earlier this year. We at the meeting received a mid-audit update of the comprehensive annual financial report. We also discussed progress monitoring of the internal audit plan, and specific audits were also discussed in relation to that item. We talked about the department goals and 3 major expectations of the audit executive. We also had an ethics and compliance update, status of alert line cases. We talked about the Institute of Internal Auditors, the IIA. They conducted a review, an audit about audit department. We also are going to be meeting again in November, and just as a heads up and courtesy to my colleagues on the board, what's forthcoming, the Chief Audit Executive's 3 goals and 3 major expectations will be provided to the board for approval in November. And then any changes to the audit charter or policy will be provided to the board for approval in December. And that there will review that we conduct on the audit charter that we have in place. So there may or may not be any edits that do come forward at that time. And then we also will have a summary report of activity that will be provided to the board in December as an acceptance, just a report that outline all of the activity that we've had over the course of the year and accept it as a board. If you want to stay up to date on progress to completion on any single audits included in the board approved audit plan, you can do so via the audit dashboard. If you need help accessing the audit dashboard, please let Garland know and he will help sync you, get the information that you need. And then I'm going to be working with the board president on scheduling a 20 to 30 meeting training on that dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and pass along the torch to Garland Blackwell, our Chief Audit Executive, for a brief presentation providing highlights from the Institute of Internal Auditors, IIA, audit of HI Audit Department, where we received a generally conforms rating, which is the highest rating possible.
Good evening, Madam President, your fellow colleagues, and Dr. Latham. Slides are up. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, thank you. Let's see. So there was an assessment that was done of our audit department. It is required every 5 years by auditing standards.
Hold on, Garland. Do my colleagues see the slides on the screen? I want to make sure that we're all able to see. All right, thank you so much.
Okay. So we received a generally conforms rating, which is the highest rating possible from the Institute of Internal Auditors. As you can see, all of the areas except for one are labeled generally conforms. Given everything that our audit team has been through in the last couple of years, this is really an outstanding result. We do have the one area that's rated partially conforms, and that's a standard 2000 section. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So here you see all of the areas in detail. The ones that marked in yellow is from that group on the previous slide that's partially conforms. For each of those areas, we are in the process of preparing action plans for those so that we can get those into a generally conformed state. There were several things that the assessors noted that were very outstanding. When I arrived in 2017, we didn't have any auditors that were credentialed, but they noticed that has improved, and we have audit management and staff both who are not only credentialed but very experienced as well. We utilize data analytics and mining tools to perform audit engagements, which helps us to provide due professional care. And we also instituted a quality assurance and improvement program. Many audit departments do not have that, but I found that it was necessary in this department, so that was created as well. There are some gaps related to that 2000 section that we saw earlier that was marked yellow. And these are the areas that I was referring to earlier where we will prepare action plans to make sure that we shore these areas up. Are there any questions from trustees or Dr. Latham? Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to start by thanking you, Chief Blackwell, and Trustee Flynn-Villaseka. The other members of that committee include Trustee Sung, Trustee Hernandez, and Trustee Cruz. This is board work that over the past 3 years, and the committee used to be Trustee Flynn-Villaseka, Trustee Sung, and myself, that we have really strengthened the audit function for our district between the committee and you, Chief Blackwell, and your team. And it's one of those pieces of work that I think goes unrecognized because it's not a hot topic on an agenda usually. A lot of people, I don't think, always understand it, but we didn't have a whole lot of processes in place. 3 years ago when this committee really started, we revised our charter. We've just strengthened and created and strengthened a lot of processes. And so I just want to commend the committee for continuing to build on that work, and same with you, Chief Blackwell. Trustee Sung?
Thank you. I want to thank our Audit Committee Chair, Trustee Linda Lazeca, for your work over these past several years to build up this work, and commend Mr. Blackwell as well. It's especially notable the certifications that are noted in this report, your work to increase the professionalism and the expertise of your team. It's really nice to see that recognized by an international body. So congratulations on your work, and thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sung.
Seeing no further speakers in the queue for discussion on this item. Our next item for discussion is agenda item B3, update from the Community Engagement Strategy Ad Hoc Committee Chair. Before I turn it over to Trustee Cruz, who's the chair of this committee, I think there's some confusion about what this committee is. And it's an ad hoc committee, not a standing committee. And they were appointed before COVID at the beginning of this year, as we are revising our board goals that we have had in policy since 2017. They had run their lifespan, and HB3 actually mandates that we create at least 3 new goals around early literacy, early numeracy, and college and career readiness. We're also doing some other work in conjunction with setting those 3 goals that might even be an additional goal or 2 on that. And those of you who have tuned into our workshops, one of them might even be specifically around special education. So this ad hoc committee, like I said, was created before COVID for the purposes exclusively of community engagement around our goal setting process. COVID obviously, derailed that some bit, but the committee, chaired by Trustee Cruz, and also includes Trustee Bluford Daniels and Trustee Adams. You guys have worked really hard.
Trustee Allen, sorry.
Trustee Allen, I'm sorry. It's getting late. The 3 of you have worked hard to try and come up with some meaningful plan to still conduct community engagement around this governance work of the board. It isn't about COVID. It is a very targeted purpose. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Trustee Cruz, and our colleagues, to share the work of what you guys have going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I wrote it down so I can try to be as concise as possible. So like you mentioned, this goal setting is required by House Bill 3. Moreover, the superintendent needs these goals in order to develop a strategic plan and the budget for 2022. We had 1 of 2 community meetings just this last week. Well, actually just this week. And it was solely in Spanish. We had about 70 participants. And the participants were very engaged, and we had great questions and conversation. Our next community engagement meeting around our goal setting and seeking feedback will be in English only on October 15th at 5 p.m. And the Zoom information is on the HISD website, as well. I've seen it on their social media channels. And the past and future meetings are both broadcast and recorded, so if you missed it, you can still go back and watch it. The survey will be going out tomorrow. Trustees, if you want to see a copy, please reach out to Board Services and they can send that to you. Ideally, we would have had, a lot more opportunities for meaningful community engagement, even around our goal setting. This normally around Lone Star governance would be a months-long process, but like President Dykert mentioned, the COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything, unfortunately. However, we can attend, if you have PTA meetings or, any other kind of civic or community, we can attend those as trustees and share our goals and other priorities for the board. There's a form to request us to come attend your meeting. It's on houstonISD.org/board. So, we definitely want to engage with you. I would definitely like to thank the members of my committee, Board Services, the IT department, the media department, and the interim superintendent for the support and time to make all of this community engagement happen. So thank you to everyone.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you, Trustee Cruz.
I do, hold on. Santos.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, Trustee Dygard. I just want to say thank you to Trustee Cruz and Trustee Allen and Trustee Bluford Daniels. But I do want to tell the public that that this is separate and apart from COVID, and I know that Trustee Dygard expressed that. The serious work of goal setting, I don't want the public to think that the global pandemic that's going on around us is not serious. It absolutely is serious. This is just something that was in the process of getting done before COVID. But realistically, I mean, the global pandemic should take priority among everything else. But I just wanted to clarify that because I want to let the public know that their concerns are real. Thank you.
Trustee Sang?
Thank you to the committee for your work on this. I really enjoyed participating in the last community meeting. I was really excited to see some students participate as members of the community. It was really good to hear their voices. And I want students, parents, teachers to know, like anybody who cares about HISD, right? To know you are part of the HISD community. And please join us. We have one remaining workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers in the queue for discussion. And thank you again to that committee. Okay, our next item for discussion is agenda item B4, update from the Police Function Ad Hoc Committee Chair. Again, this is a temporary committee and they are charged with planning a workshop for us to discuss as a full board superintendent team our district's police function. Trustee Bluford Daniels is the chair of the committee. Would you please share your work?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to remind everyone that this is will be an important committee and function that we've been tasked with. Apologies for those that were ready to call in and participate. We had an emergency at the last minute, so we had to cancel. But the next meeting is scheduled for October the 15th. October the 15th at 12:30. So those of you, it will be noticed. Those of you that want to participate or want to sign on, then please feel free to do so. Continue to send your comments and your concerns to us so that we can address them accordingly. So thank you.
Comments from my colleagues? Seeing none in the queue, thank you very much, Trustee Bluford Daniels. I look forward to that conversation next week. Finally, our last item held for discussion is agenda item B5, review and discussion of the board operating procedures manual. We did discuss this last month, and this will be a voting item on the October 22nd, right, Trustee Flynn-Belaseka? So voting item on October 22nd along with our other governance work. I keep joking it's like all going to be wrapped up with a big red bow. So Trustee Flynn-Belaseka is the chair of that committee. Would you please lead the discussion?
Yes, and I'll keep the discussion brief because we spent a lot of time at our last board meeting wrapping up getting all of the information and feedback from the full board so we could take it and finalize it. So everybody has received a red line copy where you can see all of the reconciled edits. We met one last time after that board meeting as a committee. I really want to give a shout out to Kathy Daniels, for being the hardest working committee out there. We did, again, this is something that we did from When did we start meeting in April to wrap this up? But we're in a place where it's finished, and you can see all of the edits that were made. We addressed every single concern at that meeting. We walked line by line. Feedback from the last month, the administration who was there to help record and reconcile the information and work on the template and integrate everything. So thank you so much. It's good to go. We won't spend any much more time on it this time around, and I guess there will be an annual review subsequent to the final product. But shout out to my colleagues, really. It was a pleasure working with you, and we're happy that others will benefit. The trustees here on the board will benefit from understanding how we operate as a board.
And Lisa McBride.
And Lisa, yes. Thank you, Kathy.
Questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, just thank you again to this committee. This was a big lift and a long overdue thing for our board. We have not had a board operating procedures manual before. We've had a bunch of policies, but they weren't put into one cohesive place. So thank you all for your hard work. You and, let me get it right this time, Trustee Bluford Daniels and Trustee Sung. You were the other two trustees on this committee, correct? So thank you all, and yeah, thank you to you too, Ms. McBride. Look forward to voting on that later this month. All righty, so we are done. So we are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. Please limit your time to 1 minute per trustee. We will proceed in alphabetical order by first name. How about that? Everybody's always complaining I pick the same person or same two people if I go in order of 1 through 9 or 9 through 1. So, but no, this is, so that starts us with Trustee Sung.
Good evening. I want to say thank you a million times to our teachers who are working so very hard. I see how hard you all are working on behalf of our students and our families, and I'm incredibly grateful. And I'm thankful to all of Team HISD who's working so hard to deliver an education to our students under the most difficult circumstances. And that's all. I wish we continue to have a safe school year and that we take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Hernandez? Trustee Hernandez? All right. Trustee Santos. Trustee Santos, 1 minute. Do you want comments? We can't hear you. You're on mute, Trustee Santos. Trustee Santos, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry, my mouse is going out. Okay, thank you so much, President Dygard. I just want to say to the teachers out there, hang in there. Happy first virtual, face-to COVID-19, first day of school. To the community, I hear you. COVID-19 is real and very, very hard. I just know that we have a lot of work to do, and my commitment is to our community and to our students. We need to get more tutors out there. We need to get special ed up and running and give our kids the resources and the education they deserve. I'm there for y'all, and just reach out. Thank you for participating in democracy.
Trustee Flynn-Villaseca?
I hope everybody continues to stay safe and stay healthy during these unprecedented times. I had a lot of time for earlier.
Trustee Cruz?
Just want to say thank you to the team of 10. I think we've spent more time with each other than probably our spouses or families the last month. But I think we've done some good work. As it hasn't been easy, but I'm definitely learning from each of you. So thank you for that. And gracias a todos los que participaron en la reunión la otra noche. Estoy muy agradecidos con su tiempo. So thank you.
Trustee Bluford Daniels?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say thank you to the teachers, the parents, community members, those of you that call and offer advice and offer suggestions. I hear, and most of you will admit that I take every call. If I don't take it right then, I call you back. And I just want to say too, thank you, Dr. Lathan and staff. I know that this is a difficult time and difficult decisions that have to be made. And even through everything that when we go back to school on the 19th, and for those that go back on the 12th, the teachers, it's still not going to be business as usual. And every day is going to be a learning day because of this COVID situation. So I just ask that we all try to pack some patience and let's just work it out as one big team in HISD. I am Breonna Taylor. Thank you.
Trustee Allen?
I just want to say thank you to the team of 10. We've worked hard. Thank you to Team HISD, and also thank you to the team of parent teachers. I also want to say this too shall pass. Thank you.
Trustee Adams?
You're muted.
Trustee Adams,
You're
we
muted.
can't hear you.
There we go. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I just want to remind everybody, friendly reminder that early vote starts on next Tuesday, October the 13th until October the 30th. And also you have time to complete your census to all the parents and teachers and staff and family members. If you have not completed your census, you still have until October the 30th to do so. It has been extended. And that's 2020census.gov. If you need to find out more information, you can do it online on the phone. People will be knocking at your doors to make sure you've done that. And also, I just want to thank Team HISD again, like everyone has said, and my colleagues and my board members, Dr. Lathan, Lisa, and all the staff who plays a part in making sure we stay. And thank you, Madam President, because I know it hasn't been easy getting through all these boards. So I just want to give a salute to you. And finally, I just want to send out condolences. And I know I'm going my minute, but I'm sure everybody heard this already. I just want to go ahead and send our prayers and thoughts to the GLBTQ community. We want to say rest in power to Ms. Monica Roberts, a transgender female that we always know, a creator and pioneer of the trans news, who was very popular among the LGBT community, who has passed away today. And so I just want to give my thoughts and prayers to her and her family and all her aunts and aunties, like they're calling her, all through social media. So I did not want this to go down, because there's a shock to Houston today for us to lose such an icon. And many of you probably know her, but this is her face. Okay, so let's continue just to say our prayers. That's a big loss in the political community. It's the GLBTQ community as well. So I just wanted to end my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Trustee Adams. And I want to ask Dr. Lathan, we heard someone bring up today in our speakers, and I know that y'all are looking into it, but I really hope we can, we're a big enough district, I hope we can resolve or try and get Microsoft to create a feature where our students, especially our trans students, can change to their preferred names so they can be recognized for who they are by their teachers and their classmates and be seen. I want to, board, we've been working really, really hard lately, and I really appreciate all that we have been putting into our governance work and all of our work lately, a lot of committee work. We have accomplished a whole lot this year. It's not always easy, but it's always valuable, and so I appreciate your hard work on that. our teachers, our principals, our staff. I'm not just a board member, I'm also a parent. And, so I get even that much closer of a look at how hard our principals, teachers, and staff are working right now in a completely a historical way of doing school, and how they're rising for our kids. And I just have so much respect for you all. And then lastly, I'm going to end on really, really positive going to bed tonight. I think we should all, in these hard times, think of something positive every day to end our days with. And HISD has bridged the digital divide for our students. And I think that that's something to really feel good about. So, all right, Dr. Lathan.
Just one reminder, our second Parent University of the school year will be held virtually on Tuesday, October 20th. We're also working with the City of Houston, either our general session or breakout session. We'll provide information to parents on their rights as it relates to evictions in the midst of COVID. So we're encouraging parents to participate in our virtual Parent University on Tuesday, October 20th. Thank you.
And with that, our next regular board meeting will be on November 12th, 2020. Agenda review for that meeting will be held on November 5th. And for any community members who are still tuned in at 9:43 p.m., you can speak to agenda items at agenda review, especially since the board has moved this year to a consent agenda. That would be the ideal time for us to really hear from you. So we've got more time to consider your input. The board has our next and hopefully final workshop on our governance work on Monday, October 12th at 5 p.m. We do have a contingency meeting planned on Wednesday, but let's challenge ourselves to complete this work on Monday. Alrighty, there being no further getting tongue-tied, there being no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned at 9:45 p.m. Good night, everybody.